Not too long ago, I asked if you, my dearest council members, would like to see more of the sort of spellcastings where I recreate the goods I see in paintings and tell you a little history lesson to go along with whatever I've conjured. In a word, the response has been quite enthusiastic. And who am I to deny my merry band their wishes, especially when said wishes allow me to do the sorts of things that truly bring me joy. So huzzah for us all, and welcome to episode 2 of what shall henceforth be dubbed Art Thievery. A series in which I, your resident wizard, recreate things from some of my favourite works of art and tell you a wee bit about what it is, who's in it, and where it's from. I know I put up a poll and technically conjuring from the canvas won, but as today proves, not every artwork I abduct from will be a painting. So I found Art Thievery a far more appropriate title. But what could possibly follow my prior fineries? I'm not quite ready for a whole ensemble just yet, but I do of course want to up the ante and make something a little bigger, with bonus points if I can manage an accessory that is genuinely practical. So I put my old brain to good use and pondered and pored over paintings and portraiture and statues and carvings, and then finally, tapestries. It was within those marvellous threads I began to notice a little something amidst the weaves of silk and wool. A common little add-on among what I could identify as working folks playing games in French fields. Among all their pastoral joy and japes, I observed an object that seemed incredibly simple at a glance, but undoubtedly ingenious. A sash at the waist with metal rings sewn in. Of course, armed with little context, I could not be sure what I was seeing, but I convinced myself at that very moment that I had stumbled upon a medieval toolbelt. Am I correct in this assumption? Is this depiction even set in the medieval period? Should you really be looking to someone who gets the bulk of their medieval knowledge from Kingdom Come Deliverance for history lessons? Well, fair mages of mine, we're about to find out together, so let's take it from the top. If you've been here before, you'll know that before I make things, I make plans to make things. However, much of the research I have to go off for this project is incredibly scattered. Barely any of the tapestries I see this belt in are available to view online fully, so I really only have little fragments to go off of, and I don't even know what the name of the thing I'm making truly is. To be quite frank, I feel a little lost as to how to start. Or I might if I did not have today's video sponsor, Milanote. Milanote is a marvellous digital canvas designed to aid creatives of all varieties in their project organisation. With this particular tool at my disposal, I am able to cut through the mental clutter that all these fragmented sources cause and compile them into clear and concise project boards. Take for instance this one, in which I gather all of my reference images and their various origins to form the bulk of my research. Research that is made all the more convenient by way of the nifty web clipper extension that allows me to spirit away excerpts and images from the web article I'm reading and pop it right into my board, links and all. Personally, I like to drag in a preset template and use that as my jumping off point, adjusting it to my various needs. It also helps that I can make it all as pretty as I please. To avoid chaos, I make boards within my boards that focus on specific elements of my process. For example, here I am able to focus on breaking down the pattern making steps based on multiple views of the belt and its numerous accoutrements. I can make lists, draw on top of the images I've gathered to understand the various shapes, and make notes, which would help indicate to my collaborators, who I could share this project board with to allow them to contribute, what exactly I'm on about if my collaborators weren't me, myself, and I. I even include embedded videos of more specific aspects of my process, like tutorials or breakdowns of pastoral medieval life. In this other board, I am able to compile and arrange my final concept art, chosen fabrics, colours and trims, as well as organise the extra little design inspirations I've managed to find, because of course I'm not simply making a plain flat linen belt sash with some metal loops on it and calling it a day. I especially enjoyed being able to take a photo of the fabric I had on hand for this project on my phone and adding it directly to the board. As a brief aside, I make no exaggeration when I tell you that making this little research board in particular particular was such an enjoyable experience that I truly intend on using Milanote as a resource for the rest of this series. It's very reminiscent of the mood boards I once made for art history lessons back in ye old school days, and honestly far more convenient, since it's able to sit in my pocket. Additionally, I have grand news to share with you, Council. Milanote is available for use for free, with no time limit in sight, so it may behoove you to get your chaotic crafty endeavours all in order with a free Milanote account by signing up with my link below. Now that I am armed with far more research than is necessary, I can begin patterning proper. To make the pattern for my sash, I'm going to do what I do best and steal the shape of this strange shoulder covering I have laying about in my stash of wizard trash. While it may fortuitously be roundabout the shape I'm looking for here, I still have to make some adjustments. Here's a neat trick. If you can't afford or find the fancy pattern making parchment everyone seems to use, wrapping paper does just fine, and chances are, since certain holidays are not so far behind us, that you have some laying about somewhere. I mark on the white side of my cheap paper in cheap marker, because using the correct tools for the job is cool and all, but not having to go to the shops is cooler. That marks the main piece of my sash pattern done, and honestly I could just add some straps to the sides and stop here. But based on the images I've seen, I believe that this is a pouch as opposed to a simple strip of cloth. In many tapestries I've seen, it appears to bulge out. That could indicate that it is a roll of fabric with something in it, as opposed to a flat sash. I particularly enjoy this depiction with a little flap, so that's partially what I'll be basing mine off of. Historically accurate? Not likely. While we'll certainly be sussing out what this belt is in context with history, I'm not going to pretend mine is a direct recreation at all. In the end, while it may appear conjoined, my pattern consists of two pieces essentially, a back piece with a decorative top lip and a front pocket pouch. The whole affair should be large enough to wrap around my hips, and I'll just add some loops on the end so I can thread a belt through to make it more size adjustable. Because bodies change, and I don't want to lose out on using a nifty tool belt simply because I've polymorphed myself into a crocodile for an hour. Feel free to copy along with what I've done and just eyeball your way through this pattern making process. You'll get a very similar result, I assure you. But if you like to skip the fuss, you can find this digitized pattern alongside all of my others on my Patreon. I cut the pieces of my fashion fabric on a fold with ease, but when it comes to my lining layers I want this to last a fair while and be sturdy enough to handle a little adventure, so I add in a canvas backing. However, I only have enough of this green for the pockety pouch panel, even with piecing. The other canvas I have on hand is this blue I used to make gambesons before, but it doesn't really match with the vibe I'm going for. While you won't really be able to see it from the outside, I'll know it's in there, so I'm going to sandwich it between two layers of my fashion fabric and call it a quilt. Crisis averted. With my pattern pieces finally all cut out, thus what I assume to be the most vexing step over and done with, I can move on to making my Since this is only two pieces of fabric that have to come together and I have laid out how I intend to assemble it in my patterning and planning stage, I'm going to spend however long I like yapping about history while I put it together, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. This right here is the image that led me on my original hunt. It's a portion of a larger tapestry from the 1500s referred to as rustic sports. As a whole, the tapestry depicts a bit of a snapshot into pastoral life at the time, featuring regular folks washing up in a river, hunting with crossbows alongside greyhounds, and flirting. Prominently displayed on both men and women, though not in this particular depiction, is this absolute gem. Throughout the medieval period and onward, it was very common to wear a belt with various pouches and findings attached to it, but only among shepherds or wool workers have I noticed this particular style. I could of course tell that they were shepherds and wool workers due to the shears and wool combs often observed on the belt itself, as well as the presence of numerous sheep. For a brief moment I had fully convinced myself that it was called a shepherd's pouch, but I think that may be what this is, which means I truly have no idea what to call the thing I am making. This accessory is not only depicted in tapestries, mind you. When researching medieval shepherds in hopes of finding a name, I stumbled upon this illustration from a 14th century book of hours. There he is. But of course, the tapestries are far more numerous and feature lots of pretty flowers, so my focus in this summary shall be solely on them. The The life of a shepherd and shepherdess in the 1500s, according to these depictions, looks to be an absolute lark. In this tapestry, they are seen to be playing a game known as le main chaude, which, based on my rudimentary understanding of French, translates to the hot hand. But according to my sources, it is referred to in English as hot cockles. The game in question includes one of the players hiding their face in the lap of another with one hand out behind their back, which then gets slapped repeatedly until it is hot. Somewhere in there, the player is supposed to guess who is slapping them. Someone check in on the Europeans, because apparently this was considered flirtatious fun. In this South Netherlandish tapestry that I am incredibly fond of, labelled Shepherd and Shepherdess Making Music, a couple can be seen sitting in a field doing just that, singing a duet that even features lyrics in the tapestry, that being, and please forgive my pronunciation, Chantons sur le bête, avec ta musette, quelques notes doubles. Quand est des Georgettes, elle a la voix nette, mais y fait le trouble. Translation: let's sing on the grass with your bagpipe a tune for two. When she sings, her voice is fair, but I do the work. Are you calling her lazy while she sings for you? Pillock. Perhaps it is those same lyrics that led to these two arguing back in the hot cockles tapestry, or I suppose she really just wants to see if he's hiding any snacks in his tunic. All of this leads me to believe that shepherding is a life filled with lazing about, performing music, or running around fields playing games as a means of thinly veiled flirting. Jokes aside, I find these depictions to be refreshingly human. Playing games, arguing, making jokes at each other's expense, it's all a show that humanity has and will always remain the same. No matter the time in history, we work, we joke, we flirt, we argue, and we revel in community. I don't know why it's been so difficult to research these pastoral tapestries in particular. Could it be that we as a society do not idealize the working class in history and choose instead to remember saints or nobles more fondly than those hard-working folks that brought them into their points of power by the sweat of their brow in the first place? Or could it be that search engines are a rubbish way to research in general, and I should probably open a bloody book? While I may not know enough about the things I'm talking about, I do know that the medieval period, otherwise known as the Middle Ages, spans from around the 5th century into the late 15th century, whilst these Flemish tapestries are typically from the late 15th century and early 16th century, meaning that by the smallest hair of technicality I am not entirely incorrect when I refer to this project as a medieval recreation. And while we're at it, I may as well state that this is, for all intents and purposes, a belt with tools attached. Hence a tool belt. But I'm not here to split hairs. That's for you to do in the comments. Now that I have my medieval tool belt all made, it's time to reveal the unnecessary little extras. The tools you might find on a shepherd's belt based on the tapestries I've seen and the research I've done would be a rosary, a wool comb, Christmas present, and a pair of shears. That's all good and well, but I'll be treating my make as less of a shepherd's toolkit and more of a chatelaine. I'd like to find a way to attach my embroidery needles, my fabric scissors, and my incredibly necessary and far too easily misplaced pet fuzz cleany uppy thingy. Attaching the scissors and my defluffer are done easily and historically accurately enough with the help of a ribbon through the metal loops. There's actually quite a bit I can get away with hanging from these loops using that method, but attaching my needles that way is far less efficient. I just so happen to have some raw wool that I got from a local sheep farmer through a friend, so it seems only appropriate that for this video I brute force some of it into a very rough patch of felt and use that to make a little needle book. I have heard that the lanolin in wool is good for keeping needles sharp, though I had to clean this stuff very thoroughly as it was saturated with all sorts of nastiness, so I have no idea how much lanolin it could conceivably still contain. Using some fabric scraps and a strip of elastic, I make a very basic little booklet and then decorate it with some gold trim and a fancy button. The elastic in the spine will allow me to swap out my wool felt or add in more pages, while the ribbon I hand stitch in will allow me to close it no matter how much thicker it becomes over time. To attach it, I just slap two pieces of ribbon together with some claw clasps and use beaded edging to connect them. Using the wool cut-offs from my needlebook, I attempt needle felting for the second time in my entire life to make a smooth, roundish shape. After about an hour of adding extra layers of wool roving, missing my stabs with a sharp barbed thing and accidentally turning my fingertips into Swiss cheese, I end up with an oblong oval. I then wrap my funny brown olive in some plastic, grab a little polymer clay and sculpt a hat for it to wear. To cheat at the texture of an acorn cap, I use a broken felting needle to make 1,000 tiny holes. Then use a toothbrush to smooth the raised bits towards the edges. This results in strange lumps that look acorn enough from a distance. To finish it off, I add a needle-sized hole directly through the middle, bake it, and then paint it up to resemble brass. I can then connect my acorn to its cap with a bit of embroidery thread and attach it to a chain with a clasp on the other end for unlimited attachability. Now I have a whimsical little pincushion for the impending embroidery project I've got up my sleeve. Last off, I attach this necklace closure from a second-hand victim to a chain and claw clasp to make a simple spool holder. Do not think me clever, counsel. I have seen a great many wizards do this trick, so it is certainly not an original thought of mine. Unoriginal but highly practical additions aside, and with no further japes to catch you off guard, it's time to see it all done up. I do not say this lightly, but this is one of the most practical things I've ever made. It's comfortable, not too heavy on the hips, and with naught but a scrap of ribbon, I can attach whatever I fancy to these little rings. As you can see, the utility of my make is unquestionable. I've never worn a chatelaine before, but I imagine it does pull at the clothing it's attached to if it gets a bit too heavy, which my tool belt does not. However, I am very open to hearing from those who have made or just own chatelaines. Put me in my place if I have assumed incorrectly. Speaking of which, do yourself a favour and go check out Hazariel Atelier and Morning Mercury's chatelaine vids, especially if you think my belt a little too bulky for you. They've made some dainty little ditties themselves and are just all-round great creators. I chose to quilt all the layers together for durability, but it ended up looking reminiscent of these versions of the belt, so unintentionally it became more of a love letter to the original. However, my use of ornately patterned green cotton jacquard and a floral-themed ribbon was incredibly intentional, an homage to the original pastoral tapestries and their mille fleurs. Even the trim I chose is meant to impart the feeling of ornate tapestry edgings. I don't usually go on about why I choose every detail I do. I prefer to see people recognize them out in the wild, but I really did want you to notice for this one in particular, and I don't know why that is. In the end, my tool belt is a very indelicate thing, but I am a very indelicate person, so I don't very much mind at all. Much like the working woman, she is a robust and hardy lady that does not compromise on looking beautiful simply because she has a job to do, and in my eyes, she is all the fairer for it. There was a bit of a problem with a video I intended to go out 2 weeks ago, so I've already failed into my first foray into posting a whopping 2 videos a month. But that won't stop me from trying again. Watch this space, fellow spellcrafters. I'll have a new video upon ye soon enough.